I'll be wearing a vegan shirt at a race, and this is one of the reasons I keep doing this. And invariably, somebody will come up to me and they'll like stare at my chest, looking at the vegan message, and they'll go, "Yeah, right," or they'll blatantly say something. This has happened several times, some variation of it. "You can't run on a vegan diet, or you can't race on a vegan diet." And I'm going like, as I'm holding one of the age group awards.
Well, hello everybody. This is Kathleen Gage with Plant-Based Eating for Health, and today I am so excited to have one of the first people that I was introduced into the plant-based lifestyle with. I found her. I was stalking her, and I'm a stalker. I'll admit it. But Jaffe Jones, it's amazing. She is the author of Vegan Fitness for Mortals. And how I really found you, Ellen, was Vegan Runners, your Facebook group.
Oh.
Yeah. I've been vegan, I have to say plant-based. I don't call myself vegan, even though I live a pretty vegan lifestyle. But really, it's about whole food, plant-based eating. Had some miraculous changes. And today, I'm just really excited for you to share your story of how you got started, when you got started, what motivated you, and let's have a conversation.
When I get asked that question, I say, it all started when I was a child. My aunt died of breast cancer in her home when I was 5 years old. And it was very traumatic for lots of different reasons. But my mom and both of my sisters would go on to get breast cancer. We became part of the breast cancer gene studies, the original studies with Myriad Genetics. And Myriad actually sued to patent the breast cancer genes, which they lost. But I often joke that my genes have made it all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And that's really what put things in motion. I almost died of a colon blockage at the age of 28. And doctors said to me at that age, you better do some things differently or you're going to end up like everybody else in your family. So I ran to the health food store and read all 5 books on fiber, including one by Dennis Burkett, who is often quoted by the vegan doctors who are out there as being their first foray into the plant-based movement. For me, at my age, the typical trajectory was macrobiotic. That's really, it's a vegan diet, but including white fish. And that came out of Asia, where people were using it for centuries. And then vegetarian, and then vegan. So before I was even married, after I had this event with a colon blockage, I was vegan. When I became pregnant, the doctors were going, "Oh my gosh, you've got to feed your unborn children whey protein, or they're going to die and have brain damage," and all this kind of scary stuff. So went backwards a little bit during that time. People ask me how long I've been vegan. I say the better part of 40 years. So during that time when my kids were small, I was the designated veggie burger server at the school. I did lots of things, planted a garden, and my kids, I would be overjoyed if they ran out to the garden and then didn't make it back in the house with all the vegetables, popping the cherry tomatoes and the kale in their mouths while doing that run. And then being able, on the field trips, being able to say, when the farmer would hold up the green thing and say, "What's this?" and they would know that it was kale, not spinach, as most of the kids say. So, I've had a long, rich history of trying to figure this out. I then spent 18 years in TV news and I won a couple Emmys and the National Press Club Award for my investigative reporting. But I would always try and find ways to interview dietitians because I was just so curious about all this. And some of those people are still friends of mine on Facebook today and are just kind of like, wow, you really should have been a dietitian. But back in the day, women were not encouraged to go to medical school. It was either home economics, and if you wanted to do sports, it was field hockey after school. And since we are about the same age, I know you shared that probably that common bond of it was really challenging to go in either direction that the guys were. It was well before Title IX, for sure. So I veered off course when I became a financial consultant at Smith Barney for 5 years, and the only choice I had during our working lunches was what kind of topping I wanted on the pizza. Or at night when we would do client dinners at Morton's Steakhouse. Morton's Steakhouse did not have an opportunity really to get the vegan option. So I gained weight at that point, moved to Florida, and I found myself in the emergency room a second time with hemorrhaging fibroid tumors. and they wanted to do a hysterectomy, but my OB gets on the phone and says, Ellen, go back to that vegan diet and call me in the morning. And within just 6 weeks, all signs of menopause were gone, did not need the hysterectomy.
Wow. That's incredible. That's it. Now, you're known as the vegan runner. That's something that you've kind of branded yourself as, and a lot of us, find you to be our heroes for that. Because I started running at the age of 60 and did my first full marathon at 61, and it's kind of my birthday celebration. They have big marathons around here. I fortunately, live in an area where there's a lot of running. But when did you get involved in the sport of running, and how did you come to be known as the vegan runner?
Well, it's interesting. About the same time that I was going through this transformation with my colon blockage, I tried to run before I moved back to St. Louis, which was my hometown and where I had the colon blockage. And I worked in Miami, but the beaches there were terrible to run on, and the sand was very coarse. And so I tried it again about the age of 28 and started running competitively then, but didn't place in my age group at all. And I was very much a middle of the packer, didn't have any training, I read the Jim Fixx book of running.
Right.
He ended up dying on the side of a road. In fact, I just had that discussion today with my cardiologist, which is an interesting story, why I'm seeing a cardiologist. But he was chowing down hamburgers and bragging about it. And back then we knew that probably wasn't going to end well. But I think he also had a genetic component of what's going on with him. Anyway, so just sort of self-taught myself about running, and then took a break when my kids were small. And then when they got older, I started running again. And then here, when I moved to Florida, one morning I woke up and there was a shotgun blast out my window. And I thought either somebody's been murdered or that was a race starting. Fortunately, go over there, and there was this crowd of people, of course, and I'm just like, I'd only been in Florida 6 months, and I go to this woman who is still my running friend to this day in her 70s. I go, how do people run in Florida, especially in the summertime? And she goes, get up at sunrise. So I started doing that. I trained on my own for a year before I had the guts to show up at a local running club training run. And about a year after training, somebody said to me, have you ever done a 5K race here? And I go, no. So I entered a race thinking it was a parade route before the parade actually started. So they had cops along the way talking, I'm dating myself here, talking into their two-way radio, to let them know when the last group of runners went by. And I was pretty sure I was the last one as they talked into their two-way saying, okay, there goes the last one. But I wasn't last. So I want to encourage people, if you're thinking about running, the odds are you won't be last.
Well, let me just stop you there. I always tell the race coordinator, when I come in, the race is over, because I'm always the last one. But I did race this weekend, and there were 2 women behind me. So yay for me. And
and it's wonderful. And at our age, especially, I live in the Sarasota, Florida area, so it is a very competitive running community.
Absolutely.
Multiple races on weekend days, so you get to pick your race.
That's awesome.
And so what I found was I started the high school coach of the girls cross country and track team invited me to come run with the girls. And when she saw I was keeping up with them, she said, you're talking about an 8-minute mile. Do you think you'd like to be my assistant volunteer coach? And I go, yeah, sure, that sounds fun. So I did that 3 or 4 days a week and learned just a ton of stuff in the process of doing that. And then, about that time also I started placing in my age group, because I like to joke, you win your age group because you just show up.
You show up, you don't die. Yeah, there it is.
But it's really not true. There are women who run faster than me. They're still doing 5Ks in 24, 26 minutes. And
that's amazing.
My PR recently in a 5K, and recently in the last few years, is 27:50.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
And, it is in my genes, I will tell you that, along with some other terrible genes that I've just learned about. So I'm just trying to really, it's a fast way to keep your health running. And so Absolutely. How I have to be known as a vegan runner is just because I had written my first book, Eat Vegan on $4 a Day, and that became hugely popular, much to my publisher's surprise. And that really launched me on the lecture circuit and doing social media, which I learned because you kind of have to. And publishers today, especially, they really want to know what your marketing plan is.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I have to say, there's been people who, when they know I've gone plant-based, because, you know, I tend to step into things in a really big way. It's like, okay, we're doing this whole thing. And I've had people say, oh, I couldn't possibly eat plant-based, or vegan is what they say. It's way too expensive. And I say, no, here's a book. I want you to get this book. And I send them the link. And of course, I send my affiliate link from Amazon. So when they buy it, I make a couple of bucks and everybody lives happily ever after. But the whole point being is that you have helped to shatter the myth that you cannot afford to go plant-based. Because the thing that I really think people miss is the short-term expense compared to the long-term expense, and the payoff for making changes in the short term. And I know you talk a lot about that because, again, I've got your book, Vegan Fitness. I want to get the one, Vegan Sex, because I want to find out what's life like, what's sex like as a vegan. But and I know Rip Esselstyn talks a lot about that. He gets men to go vegan because he said it's better than Viagra, you know. So what I'd really love for you to talk about, first of all, tell us how old you are, because you keep saying we're about the same age, and I know we are. Tell people how old you are.
66.
I love it. I love it. And you're shattering the myth that as we get older, that life is over and we have to be frumpy and we can't have movement, we can't have exercise. You really shatter that myth. And so let's talk about that whole thing of like the cost of being a plant-based or vegan eater, compared to the short-term cost compared to the long-term cost.
Well, you know, one of the reasons I got the idea to write that book back in 2008, it was really when I started trying to peddle it with publishers. And I just was so passionate because I saw these stories on the news that said you can't eat well on a budget or on food stamps. And I've been eating a vegan diet for the better part of 40 years. As I watched my mom, aunt, and both sisters get breast cancer. We were part of the first breast cancer gene studies, and it was just kind of sad to see all of their issues and, you know, eventually death. And I thought, you know, I've been knowing that the price of beans, the price is just ridiculously cheap. So, and it really hasn't changed. And as a consumer investigative reporter, I had to work with the Consumer Price Index. So I knew that the cost of beans really hasn't changed over 30 years. It's about a nickel an ounce dry. And that cooks up into 4 ounces cooked if you have 2 ounces dry. And so that's a dime a serving. And wow. I'm always the prices at big box stores like Walmart. And people go, ew, are you recommending Walmart? And I go, ew, if you live below the poverty level of $24,000 a year for a family of 4, you're already shopping at Walmart. Yeah. And I knew that every community had a Walmart. So you can't give me the argument, oh, you got to go to Whole Foods to eat a whole diet. Not the case. So every single recipe in Eat Vegan on $4 a day has an estimated price associated with that specific recipe based on the ingredients I price out at big box stores. So that's how I got there. But it's not only what you save at the grocery store. And some people go, oh, I don't have time to cook from scratch. And I have a whole list of tips in there how you do this, but that's one of them, is cook from scratch. And they go, you don't have time for diabetes, heart disease, or cancer. Those are real-time wasters.
Bingo, yeah.
So, and then, you know, you get into the $100,000 bypass surgery or $1 million in cardiac rehab. It's exactly what it costs, because I went through that with a family member for 30 days, cardiac rehab, $1 million. Wow. It's not sustainable, no matter who pays for it. You, me, insurance companies, the government. We just can't keep footing that bill. So as I like to kind of joke, I hope you like the recipes in the cookbooks, because we're all going to be vegan, whether we want to or not. I really do believe it is a survival of the fittest. And I see this play out so much. I alluded to earlier, and I don't know when this will be broadcast, but I'm probably going to start sharing this. The reason I was at a cardiologist is because after 40 years of running, I was having, and I've had chest pain pretty much since my 20s, off and on. And the very short story is I did this calcium score test that if you have any kind of issues. The doctors now are going to this as sort of their first go-to non-invasive test. And you're supposed to get between, ideally, 0, but 0 and 400 is considered normal. So my score was 1,600. And so suffice it to say, all the bells and whistles have gone off. And I've done imaging, and what it's showing is that there's a lot of controversy, first of all, out there in all of this. And some people say this test is, it's not a predictor. It's not, it shouldn't be used to diagnose the other tests. And I've had all the other tests. And as you might imagine, as a vegan, my total cholesterol is in the 130s. And everything else is just perfect, as you would expect. So the inside of the arteries are fine. It's what the arteries are made of that's calcified. Did that happen starting when I was eating the high protein diets? Possibly. There are also studies that show that endurance athletes have calcified arteries. And I saw an interview with Rich Roll was being interviewed by Joel Kahn, or maybe it was vice versa. I think it was vice versa. And Dr. Kahn, who is my co-author in Vegan Sex, is telling Rich that he needs to go have this test done. And Rich is going like, I don't want to do it if it's going to, results. And it was just hilarious to the extent that I have actually gone through this. The other third possibility, and we're still waiting for the genetic testing to come back because they forgot to do it on the last blood panel, is that it is very much genetic. Some people just don't have the ability to process calcium, and so they get osteoporosis, which I don't have, at a faster, more severe rate than the rest of the population, or that the calcium ends up in parts of their body where it shouldn't be instead of their bones. So that is a gene that's out there.
That's incredible.
So that's what, my sister died at the age of 69, not much older than me. And she had diabetes and heart disease very early on. And then the other sister had breast cancer 3 times. So I sometimes joke, because that's all you can do in these situations. I come from the sickest family in America.
Well, and if you look at it as a country, just in general, well, worldwide, our health is just going in the toilet. I mean, you look at the diabetes rate, the cancer rate, the obesity rate, and a lot of it is preventable. And that's the thing that I think, for me, why you asked me before we actually started this conversation, what is my motivation? My motivation is to bring awareness to people that you can take control of your health. Because I watched my mother die a terrible death, and it was a long, drawn out thing for years. And just piece by piece, they took her away.
Right.
And I don't want to be like that. And I know that, I have some say in that. Yeah, can't guarantee it 100%, but with all the running that you do, first of all, I'm looking at all your medals on the back wall, and my puny little medal tray looks so small compared to yours. Size does matter, I guess. So, but how many medals do you have back there?
So I have placed in 157 5K or longer races for my age group since 2000.
Wow.
I like to go just on plants. And, I've done 2 full marathons and 13 half marathons, placed in one of those. But
nice.
My main claim to fame is that I found out rather late in life that I'm much more of a sprinter than I am an endurance runner. And so I am currently 3rd in the U.S. in the 4x100 meters for the women's 65 to 69 age group.
That's awesome.
And 5th in the 800 meters, 7th in the 1500 and the 400. And so that's a result of competing at the National Senior Games, which they only hold every 2 years. So, that's kind of really a big deal for me, especially to compete in all the different events.
Right.
I'm currently 1st in the state of Florida in all 6 track events, the 50 meters, 100 meters, 200, 400, 800, and 1500 meters, again, for my age group. And that one was not easy to do. It was 4 a day, and people were dropping like flies. So,
well, you coach people, don't you? You do coaching.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Do you do it remotely? Do you do it in person?
Both, but mostly remotely, because
Okay.
The vegan audience is more narrow than just people who want to learn how a couch to 5K program, for example.
Right.
And you can get all that stuff online now. So and I've done them myself in terms of training for a full marathon. I actually used an online program that was just kind of cookie cutter. So people like to tap into my background just because I was also a trained cooking instructor for Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine for 6 years for the Cancer Project. And I was doing media training for them. And I smelled my way into their kitchen and I said, what's going on here? And they said, we're developing this program called the Cancer Project, like 2003, 2004, something like that.
Wow.
And yeah, so, and a lot of people who came through that program are now out on their own, like Colleen Patrick Gaudreau, Chef AJ briefly, you know, different folks who had the incredible opportunity to learn under Dr. Neil Barnard and the whole staff.
Wow, that's awesome.
So there was that. And so in terms of the numbers, that's really it. You know, it's all about just trying to stay healthy, and running burns calories faster than anything. You know, I've got this wonderful, I joke that I was probably born like 40 years too late, but I'm a total geek when it comes to technology.
Got mine on.
Yeah, I started with Garmin, and Garmin's great. But, you know, once I discovered an iPhone and the Apple Watch and how they talk to each other. And the main thing is, you know, you can see it. And with, you know, our aging eyes.
Well, I was going to say, wait a minute, let me see it.
All right. Well,
well, let me ask you this.
Goes away. But so that's,
oh, that's really awesome. It went away. It went away.
Yeah. So it just.
Okay. So you just tap it. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so what it does, it plays music right off the watch wirelessly into my earbuds.
Oh my gosh.
A techie on this kind of stuff. And then I can tap, you know, another tap goes into the Nike app, and then I can just start running and it tracks all my mileage.
That's incredible.
And then while I'm racing, of course, I see it. And of course, runners, I mean, that the whole Apple thing is all about closing the circles.
It keeps going off.
Yeah.
Ah, there we go. Okay. So, okay.
You know, I can see at just a glance here how many calories I've burned during the day.
Right.
I've met 216% of my exercise goals for the day just by going to a spin class this morning. So,
wow. You know, and I do spinning also. And first of all, how can people get in touch with you? Let's say that, you know, people want to hire you to coach them through this whole running thing and going vegan. How do they get in touch with you?
My website is vegcoach.com.
Vegcoach.com. Okay.
There.
Okay, because we'll put all that in the description for the YouTube episode, and then I do a blog post and we put it there, and then I send it out all over social media, you know, because I just so support the lifestyle and what people like you are doing to really help people save their lives. And, you know, so tell me about the other exercises you do. You said spin. I do spin twice a week. And boy, I'll tell you what, average age in our class, 68 years old. And these people, there's some in their 70s and 80s. And when I first went in, I thought, piece of cake. After 10 minutes, I about died. But now I keep up. But you do spin. What else do you do?
Yeah, and I think, you know, because of, I don't know how tall you are, but because I'm a short person, there's no way I ever win a race against somebody who has legs up to my neck, which I'll have. So
I probably have legs up to your neck. Yeah, I'm 5'9".
You're going to be fine. You're going to like get senior grandmasters at these races. So the spin really helps with the turnover. So that's the other thing. And then just, you know, being able to, if you can, you know, have a low body weight, that really the faster runners definitely are on the low side of that. And
right.
Because I was also diagnosed this year with psoriatic arthritis, which is a whole other thing we didn't talk about, but that's an autoimmune disease, also genetic, and also rampant in the family. And what I read about that when I was first diagnosed was that I'd be lucky to be walking in a year, let alone running. So,
oh my gosh.
That I worked with Dr. Brooke Goldner. If you haven't interviewed her, you should. She's amazing. She works with a lot of great people on autoimmune diseases. And again, within 6 months of going on her program, I mean, my fingernails were falling off. My hands were all scaly and white, cracked and bleeding. They are perfectly fine.
Wow. That's incredible.
Usually manifests itself in the knees or the elbows, and there's a little bit left there, but not much. I mean, I've been to arthritis specialists, and they're going like, you know, well, why are you here? Because by the time I was on the waiting list to get in, I've worked with Dr. Goldner and following her protocol, which is basically a raw diet and a gallon of water every day, and
wow,
half cup of flax seeds ground up fresh. So, and a lot of greens and vitamins. So incredible stuff that's out there. There's so many amazing people that are really helping a lot of different people, and understanding that genes don't determine destiny, even though they can wreak havoc with our lives sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, and if we're predisposed to certain things, we can minimize our risk by changing the lifestyle in what we eat. Now, you have 6 books out. What are I know we've got the Vegan Fitness, and I really encourage people, get this book. It's a real good read. It's easy to read. You've got some great ideas in there, great tips. Tell us about the other books you have. And now, which one was the first one? $4 a day?
$4 a day.
Okay.
Yeah. That was kind of my first love. And, you know, my publisher always said, understand these books are your calling cards. They're not going to, you know, make you a millionaire, which is definitely the truth. And people, when they write their first book, they often find out that it's about the marketing that's important. And
oh, yeah.
just one-shot wonders. So the second book was Kitchen Divided, Vegan Dishes for Semi-Vegan Households.
Oh, okay.
When I started on the lecture circuit with Eat Vegan on $4 a day, I asked people to raise their hand if they were living with somebody who didn't eat the way they did. And there was lots of consternation and eye rolling. So I thought, you know, what a great idea to kind of streamline the cooking process so that if you do live with someone, you're not a short order chef. You're not making different meals for different people's appetites. So these were sort of template recipes that the meat eaters could plop whatever stuff they wanted to put in it. But you didn't have to cook separately. Or a recipe might be your main course and their side dish. So that's how the recipes there were structured. Then the third book, because as a runner, I was starting to hear people talk about this paleo craze. And I'm going like, this is Atkins, this is the Zone Diet, this is South Beach Diet all over again. I've done these diets. I forced myself to read the meat-based paleo books. And so I wrote a vegan interpretation of the paleo diet. I said, you know, it's time for vegans to reclaim the title paleo. And sure enough, National Geographic a year later came out with a cover story called The Real Paleo Diet. And they quoted out of my book, not by attribution, but definitely by words and concept, saying that the current meat-based paleo books were a stew of misconceptions. It wasn't like a wild boar was running through our backyard 3 times a day. We could catch it successfully and not get sick and die. So that was Paleo Vegan. And again, just offering the vegan alternative to those people, because I was hearing from a number of vegans who were abandoning ship and going paleo. And I thought, we've got to stop this. So
right.
Marketing challenge number 3. The fourth one was Vegan Fitness for Mortals, the one that you like. And the fifth one then was Vegan Sex. We self-published that, Dr. Khan and I, as well as a recipe developer. And then Vegan for One was the 6th one. Because my publisher, when I first approached them about vegan sex, they said, oh, you know, sex, we've had books about sexuality they haven't sold. So they didn't want it. But then when they saw how well it was doing as a self-published book, when we did get it self-published, they bought the rights to it. And so
nice.
Now it's mine.
That's awesome.
So that's how that kind of all fell together.
What's your next book? What do you have on the drawing board?
Well, at this point, we had talked about doing one, frankly, on vegan investing with my background in finance. But the problem is there aren't any 100% vegan companies that are publicly traded. Now, Beyond has been, as we speak, has been whispering about going public, but then there's been other pushbacks that maybe they won't, but maybe they'll just stay private. So, you know, the problem is you can't really recommend, as I would like to, for people who have money to spend on investments unless you do it privately. And that's just not, they don't think it's a whole, nor do I think it's a whole book on it.
Right.
Anyway, so, you know, we're just sort of in the process of regrouping that. My next project actually is probably not going to be a book so much as it is, I'm working with some people in our movement on a coaching program called, we're going to launch this pretty soon. We really haven't, probably by the time this airs, I assume it will be out there, but it really to encompass women who kind of feel, or men who feel alienated from the gym. So Fitness Without Tears is the name of that.
Nice. Well, it's interesting because I've had my business 25 years and I'm actually in the process of transitioning from a general internet marketing community and small businesses, micro businesses, solo entrepreneurs, to shifting into focusing on plant-based vegan and wellness companies. Basically, doing all the teaching that I've taught for 25 years. And it's interesting because my business has done quite well in the time I've had it, and yet I just felt like something was missing and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And I meditate on a regular basis and I turn my life over and do all that kind of stuff, all that woo-woo stuff that seems to work. And one day after maybe 2 months of being plant-based, it just hit me. What am I waiting for? This is the next move for me, is to move into that industry. So it's really, to me, very exciting because according to all the research I've done, plant-based and vegan is the largest growing market in 2019 on so many different levels. I mean, there's just so much to choose from. Now, how does the compassion to animals play into what you do? Is that a part of it? Does that matter to you? Does that drive you?
Oh, totally. In fact,
okay.
There are a number of vegan pages out there. My vegan running page is just one of probably thousands, hundreds of thousands of pages that you can join. But there was a large vegan page. I don't know if it's Vegans United. I think that was it. And somebody was mentioning me there, probably one of my books or something. And then somebody wrote underneath, she's an apologist. I'm going like, what's that? I don't apologize for, I'm very out there with my conviction in we have to do this for the animals. And, my posts and social media are probably more focused on health and fitness just because that's the direction I've chosen to go because I'm good at it. And you have to, I'm not going to be a 20-something or 40-something vegan bodybuilder. I'm just not. And we have to recognize what we do well. And there's so many great animal rights activists out there, but certainly they are the ones who are on the lecture circuit speaking about those various topics.
Right.
That's been their field of interest. My background has been financial services as well as marketing and television. So using that to promote what I do, I mean, all 6 of my books are very different in the topics. So again, I always looked, in fact, I even had a website at one point called Vegan Myth Busting. Us creatives, we're just always thinking of what is the next level? What is the next thing we can do to get the message out there? And
right.
So, the United Nations, I'm always saying this, has said the number one thing we can do to reduce our carbon footprint is give up animal agriculture.
Right.
And we say that all the time. And the younger generation really gets this. They grew up in the YouTube generation, so they see all those videos out there. I guess the one I shared the most and really got so much traction, and if you haven't seen it, you should, Dairy is Scary.
Yeah, and what's the name of the gal that does that? I would love to have her on my show.
Yeah, you can Google her. I mean,
that video has gotten, I think, about 6 million views.
Yeah, and easily trackable if you can. I've never seen her speak at a physical event that I've been to, not to say that she hasn't. And I know, social media has really clamped down. I saw some posts in the last year saying that it had been banned from Facebook. I don't know if that's really true or if it's bad. But, social media, they're run by advertisers. So it's all about pay to play. And as a former journalist, that kind of makes my skin crawl. And that's why I try and give so much out to people like you who are willing to do this for free, basically, to get the message out there.
Right.
And, we have to figure out how we are most effective. What is our message? And, I've just been blown away by all the videos as a former television reporter and photographer, the editing that's involved now and stuff. It's like, I just wouldn't have the patience to do that. But there are people out there who do, and they've made some incredibly powerful movies, documentaries, and videos. So I know my friend Victoria Moran, if you haven't spoken to her, you should.
I plan to.
About compassion, and so
right,
and religion, which is, of course, I mean, I think so many people are connecting all these dots now. It's like bing, 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 bing in our brains as we realize, like, okay, we love our dogs and our cats, so why wouldn't we love a pig that has more intelligence? Not that that means we should love a pig more than a cat or an animal, or a cat or a dog, but this is the message that we really have to see as we promote it ourselves and look for that way to connect with people in our audiences as well.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that we've been conditioned to keep our lives in silos where, okay, this is our professional life, this is our personal life. And so we've done that with the way we live our life. And it's so interesting when I have an ebook, it's called The Beginner's Guide to Plant-Based Eating. And it all ties in with plant-based eating for health. And I have a 7-day reboot in there just because I started for 7 days. It was to get rid of inflammation. And then it was one of those like bing, 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 the lights were going off, the dots getting connected. And I've had several people try the 7 days and they go, well, I'm so tempted to eat meat. What do you do when you're tempted? I said, oh, I don't get tempted. I said, because I think about that animal on my plate. And I can literally, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but it just really shocked me the first time it happened. I was in the grocery store walking by the meat department, and I could hear the crying. I'm literally, and I was just like, oh, this, because I immersed myself so deeply. And so for me, this is a part of my life's work. It's like I feel so blessed to have been given the ability to remove the blinders and say, okay, what's my role in this? And I'll do what I can to raise the awareness. And, it's by bringing people like you on my show and connecting and, going to some of the conferences. And, one of my goals, I want to speak at the conferences, and it's really about the whole mindset of taking responsibility for our lives. So I just really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, your running schedule. And you've given me something to aspire to as I look at that board behind you with all those medals. It's like, okay, I've got a long ways to go. But for my 65th birthday, what I'm doing, which it's in about a little under 2 months, I'm going to do a half marathon for my 65th. And the more I do this plant-based eating, the more energy I have, the quicker my recovery. Talk about that a little bit. What's the whole deal with better recovery? Oh my gosh.
Here's the thing. Beets are the breakfast of champions.
Really?
Studies that show
I'm writing that down.
Make nitric oxide more available, accessible in your body. And for somebody like me who had asthma and chronic bronchitis much of my younger life, when I drink beet juice, and I do this now before every race, and I started doing it, I think, at the National Senior Games 2 years ago, it was like I had all this extra lung capacity. That's the only way I describe it. So that's one advantage that I see right away. And so before every race, I can be seen drinking. I usually process my own beet juice either through juicing or just cooking the cooked beet juice. So, I'll drink 16 ounces of that, and people are going like, what is that? So that's tip number one. But as far as recovery, it's a very anti-inflammatory, fabulous diet for recovery. And I've been on a number of panels with other athletes, mostly guys, but we all have the same reaction that we don't have. I'm a certified personal trainer as well as a certified running coach through the Roadrunners Club of America. So we don't have delayed onset muscle soreness. You have to learn about that in your training. Roughly kicks in 48 to 72 hours after your marathon or whatever intense activity you've done. You're walking around, you jokingly see, especially the meat eaters, hobbling with their legs apart and, not able to sit down on a toilet, things like that, go upstairs. But the vegans typically, we might have it a little bit. I mean, and everybody's different, so I don't want to make too many blanket statements like that, but it's just greatly reduced. It's really quite something. Just 2 weeks ago, this was a huge race in our area. It was a race over the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, 10K, and that's just a finisher's medal. And by the way, those are all, for the most part, age group awards behind me. They're not just a finisher's medal. The middle section right in there, those are finisher's medals from the half marathons.
That's awesome. You're a rock star. I really, really admire what you're doing. And like I said, when I first got involved in all this, you're one of the first people I found because I was looking for people who did vegan because of the whole recovery thing. And you're right. I'm shocked at how quickly I'm up. The other day I did a 5K, just a 5K. And before it was like couch to 5K. It took me forever. But now it's like, okay, did the 5K. Then we went to the beach with our rescue dogs, ran them for about an hour. So we put on a couple of miles there. Then we went on this amazing hike and did another couple of miles. And I came home and I was ready to work in the yard. It's like, wow, this is awesome. And it's pretty amazing.
You know, I'll be wearing a vegan shirt at a race. And this is one of the reasons I keep doing this. And invariably somebody will come up to me and they'll like stare at my chest looking at the vegan message and they'll go, yeah, right. Or they'll blatantly say something. This has happened several times, some variation of it. You can't run on a vegan diet. Or you can't race on a vegan diet. And I'm going like, as I'm holding one of the age group awards in my hand. You know, instead of getting indignant, you know, I just engage. I use it as an opportunity to have a conversation and hopefully, and now more often than not, people are coming up to me, you know, sometimes tapping me on the shoulder as we're racing, going, me too, and hopefully
that's awesome.
Passing me and not my age. But you know, at this Sunshine Skyway race, which goes over Tampa Bay, I would have gotten third in my age group out of 212 women. Had I not stopped to take pictures and drink some water. So you have to make some decisions sometimes. I am so glad I stopped at the top of this bridge. It's 2 miles up and 2 miles down, and then a mile on either side.
Wow.
So it's the longest,
awesome.
Seventh longest bridge in the U.S. and goes over water. And, you know, it's just, the ride down, it was just one of the most breathtaking, exhilarating experiences I've ever had. And I encourage people to find a race that they want to do. And, you know, if you have questions about how to do it, it's just, I'm happy to answer them. And I do.
Awesome. And what's your Facebook group so people can find you there?
Vegan runners. And there are a couple, I think one of them's out of the UK, but I think mine is the only one that's US.
Okay.
You know, or the admin is just US based. And then, of course, you know, I have all the typical other social media things that you have to do. My publisher actually made me social media director for a period of time back in the days when, you know, it was just really catching on and I was kind of picking it up quite fast. And, you know, 20,000 people really would see a single post versus now you're lucky if 20 people see it. I know.
It's pretty amazing. So, well, in closing, do you have any closing thoughts for people who are maybe thinking of this way of eating and this lifestyle?
Well, I always say that a vegan diet and running are magical. And it's amazing, even though I've certainly had my own challenges along the way. The whole idea is to finish without injury. I know I say that a lot in vegan fitness. There are, you know, you look at some of these younger guys and gals who are being held up in some ways by our movement and others as being the heroes who are, you know, they have these amazing accomplishments, but, you know, not all of us should maybe be thinking about doing 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. And there actually is such a challenge out there. But for most of us, it's going to take a long uphill journey to get to the point where you could even think realistically about doing some of the crazy challenges that are out there that people are doing with their bodies. And, you know, for you and I know I want to keep running as long as I possibly can. And to do that, you know, it sometimes means pulling back. And because I enjoy such good fitness, sometimes I'll do 2 5Ks on a weekend. And I know that's pushing the envelope and I pay for it. I have to pull back. And I may not be running the next month or two because I've done too much. So the thing about vegan fitness is not doing too much too soon because you feel so great. And people go like, well, can I run a marathon in 6 months? And it's like, well, it depends if you've done a couple, 2 or 3 half marathons in the last year, or how many 5Ks have you done? You can't just jump right into the frying pan. You've got to gradually work at it, and kind of knowing when to pull back a little bit is important.
Good tip.